And I think this whole project has been just like a great opportunity for me. And I think it just like, it's a modern topic, like you get to combine like your interests, not just like giving a project. With this project, I actually look forward to doing it every day and going home and like writing the letters like I want to do it. It's not just like a forced topic on me.
Have you gotten any back yet?
Yes, on my Excel, I keep an Excel thing with everything. These are all on the left column. It's everything I've sent to, date sent, date received, item sent, item received, e-rewrites, finally, the rights and then it was sold. And I received 1 success, 2 rejections. The 1 success was from the Sixers. It was Michael Carter Williams, and I put it on eBay, and it went for $20. So it's $20 just starting for a charity, and I'm hoping to get a lot more so I can raise as much money as I can. Any money at all is really good for the charity.
They actually send you a rejection letter?
Well, it's just a letter, like the one from.
Yeah, was it signed?
The one from the Seattle Seahawks. They said they're only donating to local schools, organizations, and the Red Wings. They said since they get so much stuff that they have limited resources. But anything I get back, I'm happy with.
Did you mention how you're going to build more credibility with your letters? Could you got in touch with?
Yeah, also with that, Mrs. Grosh reminded me of this. It's important to build connections with this. This will be very important for my project. Anything, like I'm going to start using social media more, like websites, Twitter, Facebook, just getting the word out, seeing I already set up like an email, see if anybody can get contact to me. Any connections at all would help me just try and get more.
So trying to play off the 6 degrees of separation. So I think somebody knows somebody who knows.
Well, speaking of that, Kevin Bacon's coming to the Sellersville Theater in July. Bacon Brothers, there's 7 degrees of separation from Kevin Bacon. Yes.
So Duncan is kind of indicative in terms of the students finding something that they're interested in, and you can see that this goes well beyond just autographs. He's here having to compose a letter, craft a spreadsheet, organize his data, have some failures with his rejection letter and figure out how to retool. And okay, well, letters aren't working, maybe I need to go to the social media. He started based on that discovery, that reflection. He built his website. He's working on developing tweets, Facebook connections as well. So whatever the topic is, whether it's the autographs, whether it's researching a better helmet for preventing concussions, whether it's developing that app for the phone or the watch that I don't even know what it is. Whatever it is, the students are having to engage really in all content areas in order to create, and they're creating something unique to them and meaningful to them. Other skills, 21st century skills that are involved?
Well, one of the questions that came to us after all the students put in their topics, which it's hard to even grasp the scope of the different topics, and every single one of them has a value for their own learning, and is driven by their own passion and interest. And when you can capture that passion and interest, you capture their engagement, and the way that they will write, the way that they will research, and then prepare their presentation is much different than a teacher-driven content. And obviously we have to balance them. But when we saw all these questions, and we were amazed every Friday. Every Friday we're just amazed by what we're seeing. And we always ask ourselves, if we didn't do this, how would they answer that question? When and how would they ever answer that question? When would they get that opportunity? And I think if we're about learning, I don't know that there's a more appropriate place to help them answer that question in school. So that's one of the things we try to keep in mind as we move forward with this.
Can I just fast comment?
Sure.
What about using other people, like Michelle Obama, for instance, or a newscaster in Philadelphia, that someone who has contact with other people, if you can get their interest, they might be able to act as, when they ask for something, especially if you explain to them this is going to be going, the contributions are going to be going to Doctors Without Borders, and I'll keep you informed on how my progress works. If you can get some influential people who are willing to sign on and then use their sphere of influence to go out and bring those, it might help.
Well, he did have Oprah Winfrey up there.
Yeah.
In terms of our our experience with this as teachers, and obviously that flows to the students as well, is we've discovered that now we're changing what our planning was for the rest of the year. We're now emphasizing research a lot more than we would have normally. We are doing a lot more with presentations and how to do a presentation and sell yourself, because not everybody's going to have to get up in front of 200 people and speak in their lifetime. But everybody is going to have to say something important to someone that's going to mean a lot. And everyone is probably going to have to do that with some assistance from writing or something that's, you know, visually helped. So having these skills and knowing what's possible in terms of following a passion, I think is extremely important. So, you know, you mentioned Stephen Covey and beginning with the end in mind. And now that we know that our end game is for 100 and some students to get up and do TED-style talks, has changed our game, because we feel our number one job is to make them do this successfully. Even if some of them come to the end of their question and say, oh, I'm never doing that again. It's okay, because they have to learn how to handle that sometimes the road doesn't end where you want it to, but going through the process of learning all those things is extremely important. So the researching, curating information for themselves, figuring out what's important and what's really important, and how to communicate, collaborate, contact, you know, make connections, is all part of it. And now we feel that that's a big part of what we have to do, even within our content areas. Make sure those skills are the ones that are emphasized. So
One other comment, please. Dr. Zal, when he was here, talked about the deliverable, that if the teacher is a coach and helping a student, a group of students maybe, collaborate and come up with a deliverable project, a product of some kind, that is just really encourages this creativity it's great. Thanks, guys.
Yeah, and this would, you know, having the laptop initiative, having the laptops present, just existing in that one-to-one environment has really allowed all that ideation to move forward.
It really would not be possible.
It wouldn't be possible without it.
No. And one of the other secret ingredients in all of this, and Duncan, you're sworn to secrecy, is one of the things that we don't answer the question regarding is how are we being graded? Very few students have asked. It has been asked, but that isn't stressed. We aren't stressing how this is being graded. There are points for having the components of the project done. There is a rubric. We have connections to standards, and we have a rubric for evaluation, matching up Common Core standards for all the targeted subject areas, the 4 major subject areas of our team. But that is not our emphasis. Our emphasis is on learning and presenting the learning through the TED-style talk, going through the process. And I think that's in some ways been very liberating for us and for the students as well. I just wanted to share a little secret regarding that. And what I had up here a moment ago is a website which is linked from our personal website, our school website. But this is our explanation of what Da Vinci Day is, why Da Vinci Day, our process. It also links all of the documents that, all of the documents that the students are using. So it's just the basic requirements, the procedure document, which is really what we call an entry doc in humanities, and I think Mr. Sheppis is doing it in his English classes, and my regular honors social studies class as well. Whenever we have a project, we have this entry document, which really houses all of the directions and all of the links to the other aspects of the project. So this keeps everything organized with due dates, so they can always refer to this if they need to know, okay, what's my next step? What should I be doing next? What's the next due date? And one of the very interesting things we had students do is to get them initially comfortable with talking about their project was developing an elevator pitch. They had to, using their laptops, using the camera, do a 2-minute video and upload it to their Google Drive and share it with us, explaining what the project was, why they chose that project, and where they hope to go. So we started with a 2-minute presentation, and in the end we're hoping to get 10 to 18-minute presentations out of this, which will be shared May 20th in the evening. We'll have an evening event, so we hope you're all there, May 20th at the high school.
Is that notice gonna go out to us?
Yes.
Yeah, well, we've already talked to Joe Perry, talked to him about putting it out there. We also, the site's public, if you want to take a look at what's going on there. And we also have a newly created hashtag, PHS Da Vinci Day, on Twitter. You know, so someone was on there besides the two of us. But it'll build, and we're receiving lots of feedback and commentary and lots of support, literally across the country. I guess we can say
International.
global audience, because both of us have blogged about this topic and received responses and little maps of where the responses and the reads are coming from, and it's just amazing what this computer, how these computers and this initiative has become literally a portal into a new way of being, really, in the classroom. Yeah, well, that was a long time, sorry.
Duncan,
said
thank you
15
very much.
minutes.
for
Oh,
sharing
yeah,
that.
thanks very much.
Thanks, Duncan, I appreciate it.
Great job.
Okay, we'll talk about media contacts on Friday.
Yeah.
I also want to quickly thank Mr. Sheffus, Mr. Zaplicki, and Mrs. Durush, and it was sort of funny, I just got an email from Kara and Hillary asking me if I wanted to go to a sort of open professional development event on Saturday in Philadelphia. It's not often that I get invited by teachers to go to a Saturday professional development.
You thought he would buy lunch.
Yeah, I will. But yeah, so I appreciate the three of you being here this evening and your passion towards creating some really great opportunities for your students.
Last year, I had seen something that was run in Philadelphia by teachers. It had no hierarchy, meaning it was come and share how you're using technology. It was really a bottoms-up kind of thing, of just helping each other, reaching out to people and getting ideas. It's incredible.
I think that's, we're going to
People
the
are
second
going
year
to
of
do
that.
I can't.
That's what I
If you are ever on Twitter, if you're on Twitter, pretty much any school night between 7 and 8 o'clock, if you look at the trending hashtags, most of the time, there are one or two education chats that are trending of people just sharing the professional learning, ed tech chat, social studies chat, and for English, and social studies chat, Genius Hour chats as well, and just the way, we really feel like we're modeling for our students the way we're learning. We keep joking with them that Da Vinci Day is our Da Vinci Day, because we have them do a couple of things and then we're like, oh, that didn't work. Sorry guys, that didn't work out. But they've been very understanding of that. And so I think really that having the laptops and needing to figure out how to integrate them effectively has sparked a new interest in ourselves and a new way to professionally learn and grow and challenge ourselves as educators, which is fantastic.
I want to ask a question.
We move on to textbook.
Let me ask if there is public comment, so this has been a rather long.
Yeah, sure.
Mr. Henry?
Well, one of the things that comes to mind is I looked at Powtoon, and Powtoon is owned by a British company. It's regulated by English law. And it made me think, as you use more and more content on the internet, everything that you use has some kind of terms and conditions. And who's reviewing those terms and conditions to make sure that it's being used properly by the school district? Because I read the Powtoon terms and conditions, and it said some of the content cannot be displayed in public. It can only be displayed on a personal computer. So, you know, as we use more and more software, each one of those comes with a big list of terms and conditions and regulations. Who reviews that? Because I know that the school district has an attorney that looks at actions of the school board, but does the school district have an attorney that looks at those specific laws that are regulations that you're implied following? I just thought that was a sort of a new area for use of the internet. I mean, digital citizenship is one thing, but then you've got usage restricted by the vendors. And I don't think students are reviewing those.
If a teacher is using something as a requirement, that's a web app that will require any kind of registration, they send it to me and I'll review with them those terms and conditions. Probably the best example of what will come up at times is you'll have a middle school teacher that's interested in having students use something like Prezi, which is a presentation web app, and the user agreement is that you can't agree to it if you're not 13. So what we'll do is send home a letter to parents saying Prezi is available as an option. Please be aware that a parent would have to register. But I think what you saw today, the students chose that on their own. They chose to register. We acknowledge their work in it, but the district isn't requiring that they register for a specific web app.
Well, I mean, do you know who registers and who doesn't, and et cetera? I mean, who's keeping track of?
Well, it's a student choice, the students choosing to do it.
Yeah, but for example, there was a presentation here. Was that by a subscription, or was that just someone used it? And
Is your concern copyright?
well, I think it's an interesting question because you have copyright, you have plagiarism, and what tools do you use to determine that something isn't plagiarized? You have music copyright, video, all kinds of copyright. Who's reviewing that? Just you?
Good, I don't review everything.
Well, I mean, I think it's a question that you have to think about because you're going to become involved with more and more, not less and less.
Sure, yeah, it is something that we discuss. It's
also a question that's come up on some of the chats that we've
yeah.
been a part of and talking about, and usually most of the stuff that we see the kids use comes by recommendation from very credible organizations who we feel strongly that experimenting with something they've suggested is going to put us in a good circumstance and not leave us over liability.
I just think you have to keep track of whose
I got
laws
it.
you're violating or not violating, because a school district's much more interesting from a monetary standpoint than an individual, and it just could bring about some kind of legal action.
Well, they're district-owned laptops.
Well, I guess I'm just saying that it's a bigger target than.
Yeah, but I'm
person.
saying if some kid puts something on the laptop, it's the Pennridge School District's
Yeah.
laptop, not the kids.
Yeah.
And so, if you were going to a business and, there was software that hadn't been paid for and wasn't being used per the agreement, they're going to go after the company, not the employee.
Yeah,
Same thing here.
that's a good example. Because that's happened.
Yeah. Pirated software, misused software. That laptop belongs to Pennridge School District, not that student.
Well, the students don't have privileges to add software to their laptops. It's for the board to do there.
Well, I think that's an old problem, because with the cloud, you're starting to use software from other areas and that reside other places. So it's an interesting legal problem. Did you actually put software on your laptop because you're using something that's in the cloud? I mean, I don't know how you deal with that.
Anything else?
I had a million other questions.
Are they appropriate to this topic?
Yeah, on your report on one-to-one, I just, when you took a survey of the 500 students, some of those students were in their second year. I assume they were in the pilot project. Some of the students were in the pilot project till they had a year's experience on the other students. And so I was just wondering if you looked at how their responses were to some of the questions compared to the first-year students.
I didn't disaggregate the data in that way.
Yeah,
Yeah, I mean, that would be a good question.
yeah, because there's a learning curve there.
Sure, yeah, yeah.
And then I wondered about, you didn't report on, you reported more on the curriculum end, I understand that, but is JLR still involved in implementing this technology?
That'll be
That's a
it would be,
It's 207,
yeah.
I have to wait for the technology meeting?
pretty soon.
I can answer that there are times when they are consulted on decisions.
On one-to-one?
But the extent, I don't know. I don't think that it's been very common anymore that it's specific to one-to-one, but, it would be more appropriate to ask Mr.
Okay.
Trotter that on the 7th. He can better answer it.
Thank you.
Okay. Joan, you want to share your...
I have two textbooks for approval tonight. They're for 8th grade science. And they are from the same series as the book you approved a couple months ago for the ecology unit in life science. And the publisher is Glencoe, and it's the iScience series. Just like with the life science series, they publish their books as one big textbook that encompasses all of these smaller books, as well as the separate modules. And just like I did with the life science book, rather than purchase the entire textbook, which didn't really match our curriculum, I identified which modules would be more supportive. That was more cost effective to do that. It also allows us, if we have future needs where we have growth in numbers, we can share books more easily. So all of the costs are the same as they were for the ecology book. The reason I chose this book was because of the online components that are available both to the teachers and to the students, as well as the lessons are designed for differentiation, give suggestions for students that are at an advanced level, students that are on level, and students that need more support. So the teacher resources as well as the student resources were superior to the other books that I looked at that were a similar context. Questions? Anybody like to see them? One is on energy and matter, one is on motion and forces, and there are actually 5 books to the series, but only 2 of them right now are spot on for what we need. The others were kind of, some units were applicable and others weren't.
What grade level are
This
they?
is 8th grade.
8th grade.
We would be asking for a motion to approve the titles at the next board meeting. The next item is Tracy Walters here to share a little bit about One Book, One School and 2 titles she's proposing.
Sorry. Hi everyone, I'm Tracy Walter, the English supervisor at the high school. I'm actually here with a slightly different kind of book approval request than I normally would come with. And that is because we're trying to approach summer reading a little bit differently this year. As some of you may recall, 2 years ago, the summer of 2012, we piloted a One Book, One School initiative, and I sought approval and received approval for the book Bluefish by Pat Schmatz, I believe is the last name. We piloted that with incoming 9th and 10th grade students. With varying degrees of success. Overall, we ended up getting, I want to say, about 400 students to come in over the summer on their own time to attend book talks, which was pretty impressive. But it was limited in terms of how we could really organize that with the summer hours and everything. And so last year we actually held back from the program, and I would like to make, and the English department would like to make a new, renewed effort with the One Book, One School, actually extended to the entire community, related to Pennridge High School, and have a little bit perhaps more student buy-in, since we would like to extend it to grades 9 through 12 as well. So Our goal here for the One Book, One School is a few things. First of all, we want to build a community of readers. That is first and foremost, I think, that and enhancing students' literacy skills are our major objectives. We also want the students to be able to take a break from the traditional academic reading that they do during the course of the school year. I can say as teachers, it at times gets frustrating because you can't, some of the books that we choose, you can't necessarily teach because you're not actually working with the students to help them access that text. So we question ourselves, what is the purpose of summer reading? Well, we want students to embrace reading. We want them to actually gasp, like reading, it might happen. And so in that, to that end, reading things like, A Lesson Before Dying doesn't always really, further our goal here. So we are going to continue to have summer reading options with some of the higher level and older level classes like the 11th grade honors and of course the AP literature and line courses. We continue to have summer reading requirements in addition to this. But what we would like to do is actually get 2 books approved, and the books that I'm proposing are Divergent by Veronica Roth and The Maze Runner by James Dashner. You've probably heard at least of this one because it's actually out in the movie theaters right now. Both books are very, very popular, award-winning young adult selections. And these, if anyone wants to see them, I'm happy to pass these around. They are both actually the first book in a trilogy, which was sort of deliberate on our parts because if they like the first one, they're more inclined to read the second and the third, as the author intended. But also the movie was a good selling point as well. The timing of the movies could not have been planned better. Divergent is out now and won't be out in the summer. And The Maze Runner comes out in September, so darn. So they won't be able to see the movie necessarily in lieu of the book, but that's not really the point. The point is a lot of students, even in my own classes I've heard, and maybe the other teachers can attest as well, students who actually went and saw Divergent and said, oh my gosh, I need to read it now. And now they're picking up the second one and the third one. So it's sort of caught on. So the idea is to build this community of readers, to show them that it can be fun, that they can enjoy it. And hopefully to build lifelong readers in the process. So my goal is to get both books approved. And by the way, there is no rating yet on the movie to be released for Maze Runner, which is coming out in September. There's no rating been released. It is a young adult book though. Divergent, the film, was rated PG-13. They're both very different, but they both are sort of a sci-fi variation. This Divergent is a dystopian novel. It actually has been compared to some by some as sort of a young adult version of Brave New World, a lot tamer, of course. But it basically talks about a society that's been divided up into 5 factions, which are as sort of a dystopian society that's representative of 5 different virtues. There is the erudite, the people that value intelligence; amity, folks that value giving to others; the abnegation; dauntless, and I'm missing one, candor. And people are assigned to those based upon birth and then have an opportunity to choose. So it raises some really good questions about, are you what you are born into, or are you who you choose to become? And what happens if you don't fit easily into a category? And that's what happens when one becomes divergent. And so, of course, your main character is divergent, and so it has students sort of explore the situation of, even as an adult reading it, where would I be? And, what would I choose if that's not what I was born into? The Maze Runner, a little bit different, not quite dystopian. It is, of course, fictional, and it's about, it has a male first-person perspective narrator, which was kind of key. This is a female main character. The Maze Runner is a male main character because our most reluctant readers do tend to be high school boys. So the male narrator was key. And basically, this one's sort of like a puzzle. And literally, these boys are transported, one arrives every 30 days into this glade, they call it. It's surrounded literally by a maze made of shrubbery, and no one can escape. And they essentially create this, I would say, quasi-Lord of the Flies-esque society with a hierarchy embedded where they learn to support one another and sustain one another as they endeavor to try to find a way to escape. Again, very engaging, very action-packed. A good read, and I read both of them, and I did enjoy both of them. So those are the 2 books. The hope is that if we can get them both approved, I would not be purchasing both books. My goal would actually be to have the students vote on the book. So the current 8th graders, incoming 9th graders, and the current 9th, 10th, and 11th graders at Pennridge High School would have an opportunity. I've talked to Jeremy Friedman in the broadcast journalism class. They would actually put out little advertisements. We could facilitate something to have the students either via Google Forms or some other method to actually have them select the book so that there's increased student buy-in. And then rather than having the book talks over the summer, do something more formally as an entire school once they return in September, possibly during a modified schedule, actually lead book talks. I talked to Dr. Creedon a little bit and also Mr. Smith about it with respect to having book talks in a modified schedule led by their homeroom teacher with student facilitators, possibly even incorporating the technology to have, for those teachers that were uncomfortable leading a book talk, having it done via Skype or webcam or whatever it might be. So that's where we are. Any questions?
So it won't be summer, like you won't have the summer groups at all, or will it be an option for some of them?
I don't.
Just wait until the fall?
Yeah, I want to try it as a fall. To be honest, attendance, the kids were actually pretty good in terms of attending. Accommodating that many students was challenging, especially since there was no real good way to facilitate RSVPing and everything. I mean, I'm sure we could fine-tune that, but getting teachers in was also difficult. Not that they weren't interested in attending, but it sort of ended up being like one school, one English supervisor, and a few dedicated teachers that helped, kind of thing, which wasn't really the plan. Mr. Tupliki was one of them, of course, but we want to see if perhaps we can include more membership from the community, including custodians, including secretaries, including board members if you choose. We would welcome everyone because that's the idea, to make it a more collaborative effort.
I just finished, I heard.
Did you like it?
I did. I had to finish it so I could see you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So with these, we would be asking for a motion to approve both with the idea that one would be selected. Okay, moving on, I want to give a quick update. The state has published the updated Chapter 4. I've actually shared these details before, but now that they're published and they're official, I want to go over them. And I'm specifically focused on the graduation requirements. The update to Chapter 4 is well over 100 pages long, and there's more in it than just the graduation requirements. But a couple bullet points. Current graduation requirements that we have in the district apply through the class of 2016, which is the current our policy for graduation, policy 217, is going to need to be revised to reflect the changes. And I have a note at the bottom. I'm looking for PSBA to release a model policy that I should work on. That should happen soon. Starting with the graduating class of 2017, the culminating graduation requirement is removed as a state requirement. Students are also required to demonstrate proficiency through either the Keystone exam or Pennsylvania's project-based assessment in Algebra 1, biology, and literature. So the current freshmen, this applies to. And I think we have a couple of parents of ninth graders. One of the things we've done is we send out an alert now, so Blackboard Connect message, really promoting Study Island as a good resource for that bio Keystone, so that parents, there's a resource students can work on independently to prepare for that, because it's going to count for the graduation. One of the proposals that we had for program improvement was for a science course to be revised so that the project-based assessment and supplemental instruction for a second attempt on the Keystone exam will be embedded in that course. So what will happen to some of our current freshmen if they're not successful in that first Keystone, because they'll have some limitations on their scheduling choices. That was actually part of my message as well. And we're going to actually, I talked to the partner this about sending another message out this week, reminding parents of that. Starting with the class of 2019, this is where it gets fun. Students are required to demonstrate proficiency through the Keystone exam or Pennsylvania project-based assessment in composition, pending the availability of funds. So there's a real wild card. I can tell you that recently, a lot of things that are pending the availability of funds are not happening or not happening even close to the timetable. And actually, one example of that is we just finished PSSAs. We were told last year PSSAs would become core line this year. Suddenly, at the beginning of the year, after we was finished revising the curriculum to match Common Core, they said, "Now we changed our mind." So this year's PSSAs were still based on the old state standard. We took a hard look at it, and we felt like kids were being well prepared regardless, but that's kind of been what is going on with the state with some of these things. And then class of 2020, students are required to demonstrate proficiency in civics and government through either method. We have gotten a look at the state's project-based assessment, very labor-intensive for student and teachers, so we're embedding those in the courses. We feel like that's the most realistic way to do that. Do you mind if I real quick just... Oh, I'm sorry, thank you. Just a couple summary of steps made by the district. Curriculum was aligned to eligible content in all the currently administered Keystone-related courses. Development and alterations of courses to meet required supplemental instruction for students who fail to demonstrate proficiency. Viewpoint, or data warehouse, has been set up to track students' best score. As you can imagine, it's a real fun task to keep track of who's, and it's not just who passed the Keystone, because you can combine scores of the two modules. So we set up our data warehouse to identify which students had successfully done that, to help us identify who needs to retest and who needs to be scheduled a certain way. Curriculum and instruction initiatives focused on improving readiness for the initial attempt on the Keystone. One thing that we've done this year, we're part of the Penn Literacy Network. Biology Keystone, I shared this when our students first took it and they released items, is probably the most difficult reading assessment our students will ever take. And so we decided to focus on literacy strategies and vocabulary that's identified in eligible content, where we leveraged our, we have a literacy coach who traditionally has worked with elementary students. She's working with a team of teachers at the high school in 9th grade that teach biology. We've also involved Chris Brockman to see if there are ways that we can use the technology to help review some of the content, the eligible content with students, and help with the literacy skills that are going to be important for success on that assessment. The communication of revised graduation requirements in the high school program of studies. We did even before the state published, we knew it was happening, so we put in the program of studies some language about the Keystone exams and the importance of demonstrating proficiency and what it might do to scheduling options. And then, again, we're waiting for the PSBA to release the model graduation policy, so we can take a look at policy 217. I've talked to Dr. Bavard about this. Depending on the timing of when we get our hands on that, I may present it at an academic performance committee meeting first, or a policy committee. Some of that will depend on when we get that policy, because we want to get the ball rolling on revising that. And that's actually one of the few remaining policies that wasn't updated in the large renewal of our policies, because we knew this was coming. Moving on to the next item, does anybody have questions about the, and I have shared them before, it's just now they've been published and are a reality, at least the ones that have funding at this point. College Board recently announced that they're revising the SAT, and I have to say, I'm extremely pleased and really sort of excited about the changes that they're making. I think a lot of this was an effort to compete with the ACT, which has a broader focus and really a more true to content. I don't know that it's necessarily true to college career, but true to content that students have studied. So to summarize the changes really quickly, and their site, I know I included in the packet, their site actually does a really nice job of concisely describing this. They list 8 key changes. The overall assessment is going to go back to the 16-point scale, and there's 3 sections: an evidence-based reading and writing, a math, and then an essay. The essay is scored separately. They do say that some colleges may require the essay, and we'll work with guidance to identify what those expectations are. The newly designed SAT is scheduled for release in spring of 2016. They are going to be releasing items, unfortunately just after this, April 16th this month. They're going to be releasing some sample items. A couple things: relevant words and context instead of the, here's some word analogies to do for many of them may have maybe words that you'll never see again. So it'll be relevant words in context where students will be asked to identify or define words based on the context that they're appearing. Command of evidence, sort of happy to say there's a very heavy social studies field to some of the additions. Command of evidence, students are going to read passages and then be expected to cite text evidence within those passages. The essay is going to be analyzing a source. Some of the sources are later reference or historical documents. Math focus, I found this part entertaining because of the titles for math. They have problem solving and data analysis, the heart of algebra, which is a nice catchy name, and passport to advanced math. Part of algebra is going to be primarily focused on linear equations and systems. Passport to advanced math, they actually really don't describe in any detail, so I'm interested to see what that will be. And problem solving and data analysis is going to be a lot of sort of real life applications with data that would be relevant to a variety of other subjects that kind of reference science and social studies as to that are likely to be connected with their problems grounded in real-world contexts. A lot of this will be tied to the evidence-based reading and writing. Analysis in science and social studies, founding documents, and great global conversations. So there's going to be aspects of it that are going to use founding documents. And then the last one, which I actually probably will miss a little bit, what I remember most from SATs is figuring out when to guess and when not to guess. And you're eliminating all that extremely useful knowledge here with a smiley face over it. I would say, I feel like, there's two things I would say about this to kind of summarize it. One is I feel like they've gone in a direction that reflects a lot of things that we have done and have been doing recently. Particularly my experience with social studies, one of the things we really focused on heavily was literacy in that content area and the use of documents. And I know Mr. Dillingham was just here 2 meetings ago with a summer project focused on document-based questions and using documents in instruction, and that was before we had any idea what was going on with this. So I think we're already in a position where our students will be well prepared. I also am thrilled because it really reinforces some things that we'd like to reinforce with teachers. It gives us some sort of credibility and muscle with teachers who may not be doing as much literacy in science and social studies as we'd like them to at this point. It just reinforces that concept to them and the importance of it. So I was pleased to see their changes, and I am hopeful that at some point in time the Department of Education will take a look at what the College Board is doing with their assessments. Because this, again, until we see the items, we don't know exactly what it will look like. But it sounds like a very positive change that they're making.
It's our SAT prep class. When will you change?
Yeah, that's a great question. Scott Hagan and I have touched base about that.
Based on this implementation?
Yeah, I mean, what we'll need to look at is when students would be likely to participate in that, based on when they would take, which SAT they would take. The summer program, I have to ask him about this. I believe we're primarily students who are going to take it in the upcoming year. So I think for that, we're probably looking at just next school year.
May I add something? The SAT prep course that is offered at the high school during the school year, it's a semester course. That course has been populated by pretty much exclusively 11th and 12th graders. In fact, I believe now with the new math requirements for that course, because they have been taking geometry, I believe, it's pretty much limited to that population. So those are students who would be taking it within the next calendar year. So
they're still going to be on
for the next school year, they'll be with the old system.
Yes, the next meeting of this committee will be held on May 6th, and it will be here at 7:30. At this point, we'll go back to public comment. If not, we will call this meeting adjourned. Thank you.
Appreciate everyone taking us seriously when we scheduled the meeting on April Fool's Day.
Well, we've assumed none of this was a joke, but I guess we'll know in the future, won't we?